Courtside, Show 8, Season 5, wrapping up the regular season. That's one thing to celebrate. The other thing is Randy has nothing to celebrate, even though he's having a little reception for those that couldn't get to Alabama this weekend. So I guess the celebration continues for Randy Gardner. If you want to show up on Saturday and bring gifts, I'm sure he'll be quite okay with that. Cat's all about gifts these days. Without further ado, Randy Gardner, Mike Lingenfelter, Courtside.
There we go. Heading into the last week, like you're talking about. Last weekend we had a little bit of county championships, things going on, conference championships. Talked about Monday. Last week was Monroe Central battling the Lapel, and Fighting Xavier's pulled out before the Monroe Central squad.
Yeah, two really good small schools, Lapel, but two schools that really changed their culture. Monroe Central's entire athletic department has changed cultures. I blame a lot of that on John Hostetler and the football program there. But their entire athletic department has changed its culture, and Lapel's volleyball culture is dramatically different. Much like that Hagerstown shift we talked about a couple of times. Really two impressive young coaches, and really two programs that are going in the right direction. Great match.
Yep. Then we talked about Monday night also. We had Ron Colley and Heritage Christian. Heritage Christian ended up losing that. We predicted that one.
Yeah.
Ron Colley ended up pulling it out. I think it was in 5.
Yeah, Heritage Christian is a year away. I think 5 of their 6 kids are coming back, and the majority of their kids are young. They've got great athletes in the areas where you need them, setter and middle in particular. They're probably a year away. This Ron Colley team is a dangerous team come tournament time. We're going to talk next week a little more about sectionals in the tournament, but I will tell you right now, Ron Colley is a bad draw for whoever gets it, because their strength of schedule is good, but their consistency, they've quietly snuck up on us in this thing, and they're a team that's going to have to be dealt with.
Yeah, we didn't have a highlight for those guys talking about it, but Ron Colley ended up winning their county championship, taking Brebeuf down.
Yeah.
In straights.
No, that's a team to watch out for. Yeah. So if you drew them,
congrats to Ron Colley on that. That's a good week. Tuesday we talked about Carmel Cathedral. Carmel ended up winning that one in 4, and it seemed like Carmel was in control most of that. But
same thing we just talked about. 2 legacy programs trying to get their culture back in order, and it's one of the things about high school volleyball is there's cycles, athletic cycles, and a lot of other things go on. It's not like college where you just go out and recruit a whole new team. It's there's ups and there's downs, and both of these programs are coming back on the upside. They had significant moves in the last year and a half towards really regaining their legacy-like status. I like both those programs. The Carmel a little better than Cathedral.
We also talked about another game. We picked the Mount Vernon Fishers game. We both predicted Fishers in 4, and Fishers pulled it out in 4.
Eric Beaumont made reference to the fact that Mount Vernon came out and played really strong in the first set, and then the service heat broke down a little bit as it went on. And that Fishers team can wear you out. They're deep. They're very athletic, and they're really on the. Much like I referenced Ron Colley being trending up, Fishers is definitely trending up. Fishers is another team that could really could make some waves come sectional time, and I think that HSE is either gets him early or
it's the opening
night. And
Mud Sock.
Yeah, Fishers right now is a MASH unit, and they've got so many guys out that could be interested. But this Fishers team is priming itself to make a really deep run in the tournament.
Then also Thursday night, we both attended that one. Newcastle went to Muncie Burris and swept them.
Yeah, it wasn't. Sweeps are really interesting. When people talk about sweeping people, they make it seem like it was just got spanked, but that wasn't the case. Burris was in most of the second set. They were not in because Mabry Shaftmaster went off on about a 12-point run with that big jump toppy. But, for the most part, Burris had their shots. They just couldn't make plays. And so what you got as a coach is, for Burris, they get about a week and a half to figure out how to make those plays. You think about it, 4 points separated the 2 games. And so Mike Dodrell and his Burris team have got to find a way to get 4 points. they've got to find a way to tweak things and that's what you do in the postseason. You know that, and get your kids mentally stable for the next run. But that Newcastle match with Bruce was much closer than what I anticipated, and it might light a fire under the Newcastle guys. It definitely lit a fire under the Bruce guys.
Yeah. And like you talked about too, just 4 points. What's amazing is like you always talk about when we coached together was 1 point is actually 2 points in reality.
Yeah.
You're not getting one, and I'm getting one at that point.
Yep, one you get, one they don't.
Delaware County Championship. Cowan early in that week. Cowan took down a Delville team in straights. I thought Delville played really, really hard. I thought it was. I ended up watching most of it because the wife is there. And I thought Delville played really hard, but Cowan just a little more talented. And then they ran into a Yorktown team come Saturday morning, and just too much there. But on the other half, you had WAP and West Elm, which went 4, and WAP pulled that out, and then also WAP ended up taking down Delta 4 to set up the final.
Yeah, it didn't matter. Yeah. You know, it's like I said, those guys. I'm not even sure at this point if you put all of those teams, Delville, Cowan, Delta, WAP,
at the same time,
and you create not 24 guys on the court, but if you created maybe an all-star team of what's going on in the Delaware County area, I don't think you still beat Yorktown. And that's not being disrespectful to the rest of this county. I mean, Delaware County produces some of the best volleyball around, but what Yorktown is doing is, and especially in the county tournament, they've won it now, 5 straight years?
5 straight.
Yeah, it's somebody in the county's got to come up with a way to beat those guys, and until then, it's the Yorktown Invite. It's the second Yorktown Invite of the year, and they're that much better than everybody that they've played so far this season. So it's going to be interesting. But you know, kudos to Yorktown. I mean, it's one of the things everybody wants to win, but the thing people have a hard time understanding, it's hard to remain that consistent. 5 years winning one of the toughest county tournaments in the state. You know, keep in mind in that 5-year stretch, Wapahani won 2 state championships. Yep. And so it's not like they were getting cakewalks. That's impressive.
Yep. No doubt. Lazy Boy games of the week. Got a lot of great games. Just wanted to pick a handful of them. Like I said, this week's a great week with the conference titles finishing up. We're battling for them. Great week to get out and watch volleyball. Monday, we got Leo, 1 loss still in the season. Still riding high over there with Robbins. They're heading to Carroll, which ended up picking up, I think, their 5th loss of the year this year, but having a great year.
2 great teams. That would be a wonderful matchup in that Fort Wayne area. And that area is starting the next week. This week will probably give us a pretty good idea who's at the summit of the Summit City, who's the best of the teams.
Tuesday, we'll pick this one. Brebeuf coming off their loss to Roncalli. We'll head to Fishers on Tuesday night for senior night.
Brebeuf is very, very good. I think that Brebeuf was our favorite coming in to be in the 2A state championship, or 3, I should say. And they're still probably on my radar to be there. You know, Brian Murray had called this his year, and he's got the hop kid. And they're very, very gifted. Losing to Roncalli isn't a bad loss because Roncalli is better than what people think. Fishers is, as I referenced earlier, trending big. And at this stage of the season, and I've said this a million times, you better have a bro and you better have a setter. And if you have a great leader at the setter slot, then you're in really even better spot. They have as good a point guard as anybody in Rose Duffy. They've got the weapons, and I think they've got a little too much for Brebeuf on Tuesday night.
Yep. And then you kind of talk about, too, with the senior leadership you're talking about from the bro and the setter that it's senior night that adds to it as well. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think Fishers takes that one. Tuesday night, another game. Fort Wayne Dewingers headed to Concordia, and Concordia is making a nice little run here. They had a couple of losses early in the year. I think they've only lost 1 in probably the last 10, 12 matches. So they're rolling.
Their guys are getting used to playing. You know, Trish Miller is as good a coach as there is, and she's not going to lay around and watch bad volleyball. And so you're seeing a Concordia team come to life right when they need to, and that's what they traditionally do. Dwenger, they've been good from start day one.
Yep.
So that'll be a fun match.
Yep. Thursday night, talking about your boy Angola headed to Carroll. That should be Should be a great game.
Well, Carroll gets to take on two icons, really, of IPFW volleyball. Lauren Gebert is an alum of Leo. Lloyd Ball coaches Angola. Carroll biting off all of the legends this week. That'll be a great matchup. And that little Angola team of Lloyd Balls is really gaining some steam. They're becoming a program, much like I was talking about LaBelle and Monroe Central.
Yep.
He's created a culture there. It's kind of cool.
Yep. Then we talked about Thursday, the heavyweight fights everybody's been talking about. Newcastle heading to Yorktown, senior night for Yorktown, deciding conference. Can somebody take a set? The Yorktown Tigers.
Yeah, I'm sure they love hearing that. The take a set thing. Who cares? Yeah. Who cares? You just have to win your last game. I think that's one. That's an interesting match. On Newcastle's side, you've got a team that almost everybody comes back. They're the younger of the two teams. And they could very easily just say, hey, let's wait till next year. And I hope they don't. I hope that they try to jump on an opportunity while it's there. Yorktown, their incentive, Newcastle beat them last year when Bella Rosenthal was out and claimed the conference title and celebrated like it was 1999. And I think the Yorktown guys took that personal. The thing here, there's two things riding on this. The crazy set thing, which is amazing. Amazing. The crazy no sets lost, and we're nearing 100 consecutive sets now. That those guys have not lost a set this year is remarkable. That puts pressure on Yorktown. If I'm Newcastle, I'm jacked up just to get one. And that should be coming into this thing. I want to be the guy that stops that. So that's a little pressure on Yorktown. And the other thing is, I tell you as a coach, I hate it. I don't know if we could put it on the screen at caps and highlight it. Hated senior day or senior night because it's this crazy emotional mess. And either your kids come out and they are absolutely ridiculous good or they're absolutely ridiculous bad. And if you're Steph Bloom, that's one of those things you're juggling right now. And keep in mind, the guys that are leaving Yorktown, they're real deal players. I mean, these are guys that are sewn into the soul of Yorktown volleyball. When you're talking Murr and Knuckles and Miller. And Miller's been there for about 15 years. So it's interesting. She's finally having a senior day. But, these guys, Searing, Matt, there's just a ton of really good kids leaving. And so that's an emotional game. And that's going to be a tough one for those guys. The plus at Yorktown, I'm not changing where I've been all year long. I like the Newcastle team from the standpoint that they're starting to play hard and they're starting to do some of the things. Newcastle's going to have a lot of belief to go in there. Now, if Newcastle would take a set, it would be a lot like Ivan Drago and Rocky when it was the first time he was ever cut. And, he tasted his home blood in that movie. And the best of the Rockies, by the way, I don't care. Rocky V was a masterpiece. And that could be something. Yeah. These guys have not had to, come back from losing anything. These guys have won all year long. That's the only way Newcastle can get them. If they get on them quick and early and hit them in the mouth and kind of make them think a little, that's it. But otherwise, Yorktown's been the best team in the state all year long, and I stay with Yorktown as my pick.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the streak does come to an end on set-wise, but I think overall, match-wise, I think Yorktown does win it. Just because they are just so consistent. It's the same thing I was watching with the Wapani game. I mean, it was one moment you're watching the game, it's 5-1, and all of a sudden it's 20-6 or whatever. They're rolling.
That's what great does.
Yes,
and you got to be a little concerned if you're Newcastle. Remember the goal is to win the match, not a set.
Correct.
So sometimes you go in there, everybody now just wants to win a set. Taking 3 sets from these cats is, man, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Then Saturday, another game. It's taking a backseat based on the Thursday match within this area. But Yorktown heading to Center Grove, and you've talked about it over the last month. Center Grove has taken off and really played well. Beat a great HSE team this weekend in straights.
really well coached. I like the Center Grove team. That'll be a fun match. That'll be a neat match to finish your season on, and that's one of the things that you want to do is leave the regular season on a high note and get into that one and done, which is the next thing waiting these guys.
Yeah, no doubt. Raymond James going to get a little fact or fiction this week.
First time back for fact or fiction.
Fact or fiction.
All right.
Bringing it back. We'll save the top one for a little later. That's the one that everybody enjoys. My thing is, at the end of the 2018 season, will we have fact or fiction 3 or more teams moving up classes?
I go fact. I think, and I said early in the season, LCC for Buff, Newcastle would all show up in state championships. If that occurs, then all 3 of those move up. I think fact. I think that all 3 of those teams make an appearance in the state championship, and all 3 of those teams are forced to move up. And then Yorktown, just as they lose those 5 guys, gets admission into the Mid-American Conference, and will open the season with Central Michigan next year.
Oh man, it would be a home game for them when they play Ball State.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. And a homecoming for step 1. She should be excited about it.
There we go. Another thing is, at the end of we get to the first weekend of November, fact or fiction, do we see Newcastle, LCC, Yorktown in the finals? Are they a lock? Fact or fiction?
Fiction. Even though we called those guys out early on, I think that this is a really weird time. A couple years ago you had that Delta team that for all rights and purposes had a great Yorktown team beat. I think that maybe 14-9 or something insane.
Yeah, they had the
in set 5. You saw last year a Newcastle team that a lot of people thought was a lock, trailing at match point to Wapahani in a sectional. And they bailed themselves out of that mess. Every year there's a massive upset. This year, more so than others. I think that an HSE team that gets healthy could cause trouble. An Avon team that gets confidence and a little bit of health with Eastridge could cause trouble. They play a lot like Yorktown. They're very scrappy. Providence team, you got to wonder what's going on with them. Terry Perica, and I hope that you're getting better, sweetie, is such a major part of that program. Does that change them in any way? Or, her being there, her not being there. LCC, is somebody going to challenge them at some point, or am I going to get a free lunch? Always a question. You look that I talked about Ron Colley. I've talked about Fishers, both teams that are trending up. Westfield has the potential to pick off anybody on any given day. So no, I don't think anybody's a lock. And that's the beauty of this thing. You win and you advance. It's the ultimate win and advance tournament. But I also love the fact that you're only as good as your last match in this thing. And there'll be 4 guys that win their last match in the state of Indiana. And it takes a lot to get there. So I go fiction on that. There are no locks.
Yep. One last one, talking about the Yorktown team, like we talked about. Back to fiction, is this the best team ever? We're talking about no sets lost, number 3 team in the country. Everybody's talking about them. I'm with you. I'm now in. I think they're the best team in the country.
I've been in.
I don't think. I haven't seen Assumption, but
no. Best I'd ever seen. Best team ever. Man, they do not have the net play of the Gene Kesterson groups, and there's probably 2 or 3 Gene Kesterson teams that you would look and say were the best teams ever. They don't have that kind of net play. So they would not threaten those teams at the net. They're not, it's really weird. You have Burris, who I think has got to be mentioned in the best teams ever, 4 or 5 different teams. And they were mainly ball control, very similar to this Yorktown team, but a little more size at the net, and a little more seasoned setters. They would be in that mix. In the middle of that group of how they played would be really Central. Muncie Central has had a couple of Dave Shondell / West Lyon groups that had great ball control and had, pretty significant net play. And then there was the Gene Kesterson cores, and whether it be Malafalco and those guys that came through years ago, or that group that just had Kendall White, Megan Sloan, Nia Robinson, it was a pretty good team. Pretty good team. I will tell you this: if Yorktown goes through, does not lose a set, I think it's the most remarkable single season in the history of Indiana high school athletics. I said athletics, not volleyball. Athletics. I think it is the most remarkable run of all times. You look at the difference in some of those great teams that I referenced earlier, not necessarily the last team of Gene Kesterson's, which was really special, but some of those early Burris teams and those early Central teams, I could argue that there wasn't as much parity then. The rest of the state has risen. I mean, there is great volleyball being played all over. Indianapolis, I can argue right now, is playing better volleyball than they've ever played. And so for a Yorktown team to play the schedule they play and to roll through that schedule and not lose a set, if that happens, I'm ready to say that's the greatest team ever. And if that happens, that's the greatest feat in the history of Indiana high school athletics. And good luck to you. I will tell you, I've said that I think they're the best team in the nation. I think that the only thing that would top that would be the best team ever. And it's in their hands. Let it ride.
There we go. Munciana.com rankings. Top half did a pretty good job. A little bit of shake up at the bottom half. Talk about honorable mentions. Nothing new.
We need to mention that my Bengals beat the Falcons 37-36. My Fighting Irish are still undefeated and look good against Stanford.
Really good.
And this is the one that's going to shock the world. The University of Kentucky, still undefeated.
I saw
and now
that.
ranked 13th in the nation. And if you're a UK football fan, you'll love this. Highest ranking that team has had since 1977, and they're 6.5-point underdogs this weekend playing against Texas A&M, who is not ranked and has lost twice this season, which tells you nobody believes in my Wildcats. With that said, my honorable mention, I'm staying Muncie Burris, even though they lost. They lost one this week to Newcastle, but it was a much tighter game than people saw. And LCC 27-0, rolling on the river, baby. I love what those guys are doing. I'm really anxious to see these guys come tournament time. All they're doing is taking care of business, and I promise you, you get me lunch, I'll get you ranked. That's where this is going to go. But they are still there, and I have a passion for the little teams. I coached one of those little teams, and I coached a 1A team, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful, and I love what LCC is doing, and so they're in my honorable mention still.
Yep. Talk about number 10 and number 9. I think that's got to be the closest we've had in two teams. I think Castle just about maybe make the jump over those guys down the road.
I could argue Penn 10, Castle 9. We'll stay right now. I haven't seen Castle,
but they're taking off.
Castle,
yeah.
All they're doing is winning. It's much like LCC. I mean, what else do you want from them? I mean, now we're talking style points. Castle 26-1. All they're doing is beating the tar out of people, and they're in our top 10, and they're sold 10 this week. You shared it last week. Penn is my 9. And you referenced that I could flip those two. If the Castle folks are upset that they're 10 and not 9, just flip it. Flip it, I'm cool with it. If the Penn guys want to argue that as well, you guys can flip it however you want. Hopefully that those things are determined later in the season.
Yeah.
Both those teams have extremely good athletes, extremely well coached. It'll be interesting down the stretch to see what these two do.
I'm excited to see Castle down in the south of the 4A, kind of quietly going through here.
Those guys are always, and that's dangerous.
Yes.
Because they're not on the radar. There's no expectations placed on those guys. Come tournament time, it's kind of like climbing a mountain. And understand there are no flat mountains, so no one gets an easy route.
Yeah. There
are no flat mountains. And Castle is a team that could sneak up the backside of that mountain and no one even see them. Everybody else is battling in the valley trying to get up the mountain. And Castle may be somebody that does that. Penn in the north, same type of thing. They're a dangerous team.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, get to number 8.
Fishers. They're probably playing the best volleyball of the season, and that's when you want to be playing it. We reference they have great leadership. You want to you would really like to have great senior leadership rolling into the tournament. And they've got great senior leadership in two really vital places, the libero spot and the setter spot. With great senior leaders, they have a shot. Yep. And I like that team.
Yep. All right, slipping a couple. Number 7.
HSE. I referenced earlier they're a MASH unit. I don't know, man. This team has incurred a million incidents. They've been beat up. They're hurting in a lot of different ways. The Weber kid's going to be out at least through sectionals with the freak thing, and got an ACL now from a backup setter. They got two kids that are in their starting lineup with MCL and PCL issues, and Jason has done a wonderful job holding this thing together. But man, it's going to be tough down the stretch if they don't get healthy. But they're still in my top 10.
Yep. Number 6.
Center Grove. Center Grove knocks off HSE in a hard-fought match. I still believe that Center Grove is a year away, but I also believe they've been very well coached this year, and they've got great leadership as well. They're young, and Hamill's a younger player, but the Pins are coming. They play hard every single point. They're my number 6.
Yep. All right, top 5.
Dwenger moves in the top 5. 26-2. Much like the LCC thing, all they're doing is winning. This is probably as competitive a group as we've had out of Fort Wayne in some time. And when I say competitive, parity-wise, there's some of those Concordia teams with Tiana Williams were out of control. The Carroll teams with Jackie Quaid were out of control. This is really an even base, and it's really fun to watch. That Fort Wayne area is much improved, and the parity is all over. It's seen everywhere. But Dwenger's my 5, and then they've got a chance to rock the boat towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and kind of what you're talking about, too, when you had Concordia with T and you had Jackie, they were beating each other. Yeah. So they didn't have one of that dominant team, and Dwenger is that dominant team right now. Number 4.
Newcastle. I saw moments that Newcastle team set 2 against Burris when Newcastle was locked and loaded and could create service pressure. Newcastle's issue is if they don't have service pressure, their defense is kind of exposed. The other thing with those guys is with service pressure, they receive a lot of free balls, and they're a lot less error-oriented. They're a high-error team still, and for Coach Roush and the gang to get where they got to go, they've got to really negate those errors. For them to play against the least error-prone team in America, Yorktown, they're going to have to be really, really clean. And if they can become clean, they may be the best team in the state. They may be. But they are playing harder. They are playing with renewed enthusiasm. But they're still at 4 because no one else above them is budging.
Yep. And number 3?
Providence. Like I said, Providence's big thing is going to be, maintaining stability while Terry gets healthy from a back surgery. And she is such a role in that team. She's such great energy, such great passion. These guys, either they'll miss her passion or they'll rally for her passion, and it makes them a dangerous entity. And they're still one of the teams to watch out for. I've said all year long, they're a team that I think will be there in the end.
And we're getting to tournament time. You know how their fans get. It should be a good time.
Well, the fans are the best. They're the best in the United States.
Yeah. Number 2?
Avon. We moved them up after I watched them play at the Cathedral tournament, and man, I was really impressed with them. They served the tar out of the ball. They're the one team that may have enough service pressure to put Yorktown on their heels. They serve the heck out of it. But the thing about them is they're the same size as Yorktown, maybe even smaller. But they're gifted athletically. They're gifted from a heart standpoint. They just play crazy hard on the defensive end of the ball. And, if Eastridge gets 100%, she's as good as anybody in the state. She's 100%. Her and Baird are animals when they're at full go. And so, I like that Avon team at 2.
Yep. And number 1?
That's a shocker.
Yeah.
It's Yorktown. Yorktown's got to stay really locked and loaded. Don't worry nearly as much about sets. Just worry about getting done what you set out to get done, which is win the state championship. You win the state championship, you take care of everything at this stage of the game. The biggest issue for those guys is the weight of expectation is possibly the greatest weight that anybody will have to lift or carry in the world. And my hopes go out to those guys. I love what they're doing. They're putting together a season, it's historic. Nothing less than historic. And boy, it'd be neat to have another team. I remember when Cathedral was in the run to be the nation's best team.
Yeah.
I kind of love it when a Hoosier team is the best team in the free world. So, good luck to everybody.
Yeah.
But that wraps us up, buddy. Sectional. We talk sectionals next week, and it should be enjoyable. This is the best time of the year.
It is
the happiest time of the year for me. Been a great season. Thank you guys for watching throughout the season. We're going to try to hit home runs during the postseason. But until then, be good sports fans and have a great week.